We're back with Josh Hill for A Song of Dan and Josh, the series where Josh and I go through every chapter of A Song of Ice and Fire, George R. R. Martin's magnum opus, and just break it apart. What makes him work, what makes him tick, what makes him good, what makes him bad. Josh, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Finished that nice Jon chapter that we had.
We're, I think, the final Jon chapter of A Game of Thrones, the first book in the series, Jon IX. Okay. So let's go right into it.
Yeah.
So this chapter is about basically Jon Snow trying to leave the Night's Watch, and then Jon Snow deciding to stay with the Night's Watch.
Yep.
So let's just hit both sections one at a time. Why does Jon want to leave the Night's Watch?
Well, he just wants out, does he not? All the stuff that he's seen, and he just had an undead ice zombie tickle his throat with his fingers. So
yeah, it was a good time.
That would make me want to not be a part of whatever organization put me in that position. So
but is that why he wants to go?
No, I think wasn't it something to do with Ned too?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, Ned's dead. He wants to go help Robb take back, get revenge.
Well, yeah. Well, he's going to help Robb. But it's a collection of all of these things that have kind of he's running away from school almost because he's a little kid. So yeah, that's why he wants to go. He doesn't necessarily become successful in that. He gets talked out of it by his.
He gets talked out of it by his buddies and then his fake dad.
That's true.
Looking real on. So the first chapter, the first part of it is him just fleeing. He's on a horse. He has to barrel over Sam, who's there saying, "Don't go, they'll catch you." And he's like, "I don't know why, Sam."
Poor Sam.
And he feels pretty. Always poor Sam. And he feels guilty about that, but he's going anyway. And I mean, what I got was that he doesn't want to leave. He feels like he has to because his dad, his fake dad, Ned Stark, is dead. His brother, his fake brother, Robb, is going to avenge his family. He's like, I have to help Robb. Robb's my brother. Ned's my father, kind of. I am a Stark, kind of. I have to go and devote myself to this noble cause. And I don't think he wants to leave. I think he feels compelled by honor and all that crap to leave.
Yeah.
It's very, very kind of knight errant of him. And he has this long sort of thought about his life, what it will be like now. Because remember, abandoning the Night's Watch is a big deal. The first part of the book is Ned executing a deserter of the Night's Watch. And his crime is deserting. That's it. You desert, you get killed because you said a vow, and they love their vows up in this show. So Jon thinks he was who he was: Jon Snow, bastard and oathbreaker, motherless, friendless, and damned for the rest of his life. Right, however long that might be, he would be condemned to be an outsider, the silent man standing in the shadows who dares not speak his true name. Wherever he might go throughout the Seven Kingdoms, he would need to live a lie, lest every man's hand be raised against him. Whew.
Dramatic.
Okay. He's very dramatic. I'd say almost melodramatic.
Yo, definitely melodramatic. Oh my God.
Basically, he thinks I'm Clint Eastwood now, and he's going to be this.
I am the man with no name.
And I mean, it's partly true because again, a Night's Watch deserter is someone who is considered persona non grata in Westeros. You don't do that. You made a vow, you stick to it. But just the floridness of it, I think there is a part of it that's that's almost appealing.
Yeah.
When you're a moody teenager like Jon is, and the idea of being I'm an outsider, no one understands me, I will be the man with no name. There's a coolness to it.
Yeah.
That he's
There's
this
edge.
is who I am.
Yeah.
Because he describes that way too lovingly.
I think he'd been thinking about that for a little while. Obviously, because it's his own head, so he's literally thinking it, but...
Yes. And like Laura says, right, the Stark code of honor. And I agree. I mean, he's compelled by real reasons.
Yeah.
He wants to go and help his brother. But I mean, I do wonder after reading that if there's a part of him that kind of thinks it'll be cool to be the cool outsider Man in Black Batman sort of dude. Anyway, his plan is to go join up with Robb and join the war effort.
Yeah.
And but he doesn't make it. Why not?
Because he gets talked out of it by his buddies. And there's a specific line, and you wrote it down too, and it stuck out to me, which I've been saying is the general premise of all of the problems that we have on this show, which is, and I can't remember it exactly, I think you have it written down, but I'm paraphrasing that. It's it doesn't matter who's on the Iron Throne if a bunch of undead ice zombies are going to come kill everybody.
Yeah,
which is exactly what I've been saying every single time something happens. Cersei blows up the Sept. It's like, oh, wow, she's so terrible. This is awful. It's like, doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, these crazy ice zombies are coming for everybody. And like, it does not matter who's sitting on the throne. It doesn't matter.
Well, this is still pretty early on. Like the only people who really are keyed into the White Walker thing is the Night's Watch. And that's said by Lord Commander Mormont. Who after, so, Jon's friends catch up with them. They do a whole thing where they recite the Night's Watch oath to him. And like we were saying at our post, which is also kind of melodramatic.
Brainwashing too.
Do you think it's brainwashing?
A little bit. They're all reciting the vow back to him. Like,
well, they're trying to impress upon him. You made this vow.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask what you thought about that. Did you think it was too melodramatic? Do you apparently think it was brainwashing? Is the Night's Watch a cult?
I think it very much is a cult. But as they at least pointed out at the end of all the melodramatic speeches and monologues and soliloquies that we had, it's a necessary cult. Like, they are clued in. They're like, look, it doesn't matter what happens in Westeros. It does not happen. Like, look, it like sucks that your fake dad's head got cut off, but he might end up being one of the lucky ones because he's not going to have to deal with the White Walkers that are coming. So
can't have a headless zombie, as far as I know.
It's true. Well, we don't know yet.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty wild. But the point is,
would watch.
They're clued in. So as crazy and as melodramatic and as sometimes maybe lame as it sounds that they're reciting the little Boy Scout thing right back at Jon, they have a point. It's like, look, we are the line of defense. Whether they know it or not, you need to know it, and you need to be a part of it because you can be a strong chain in this link. For us. So ultimately, that's what it was, and it kind of got through a lot of cheesy avenues, but ultimately that was the point. And I think that's what struck to Jon. He's like, look, I can be a hero and defend my family, or I can honor everybody
and the vow that I made, right?
Yeah, and the vow that I made and protect everybody, not just my family.
Well, the funny thing is, though, like, it doesn't, like, the recitation of the vow doesn't super duper work, because he still thinks afterwards, like, okay, they caught me, I can't outrun them all, I'm going to go back, but they can't watch me all the time, I will find another time to leave.
Yeah.
It's Lord Mormont who actually brings him over and is like, by the way, I knew you left. Like, I didn't really care because, look, you think you're the first person to, like, want to abandon ship? Like, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, and I knew your friends would come and get you back, and now you're here. And then he gives the line, which was the key line that they said, when dead men come hunting in the night, do you think it matters who sits the Iron Throne? And that's, I think the line after that is like, Jon had never thought about it that way before. Like, that's literally it.
True.
Which, again, is like a very, again, let's always remember that he's 15 in this.
Forget that. Yeah, I do forget that.
That he is very susceptible to wanting to be Batman, and then having, like, someone say something pretty obvious and being like, oh, that's pretty cute. Julie, by the way, thinks that Sam's Citadel could be in trouble with the Night's Watch. I'm not sure, because he could still become a maester. Or, I mean, he's still a member, and also, it's gone anyway. So what's the point?
Yeah.
I want to talk really briefly about the whole oath thing, because I mean, at this point, his friends, they don't know the extent of the White Walker problem. They don't want Jon to go because they're afraid he'll get caught and killed. And they have this whole oath thing. Like, oaths are so important in this story. I think partly because in medieval times, as we've seen in this story, it's not like we have a code of universally reliable law to rely upon to keep order in society. I mean, today, we all, there are criminals, but we all know the law. We know to, like, not cross on red. We know not to steal or not to cheat in our taxes, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But, I mean, back in medieval times, I mean, it's no phones, no faxes, no computers. It's hard to get transmission of, it's easier to be an outlaw. And so things like oaths are taken seriously because that's the law. Like, that's an important thing that binds society together. You make an oath, you stick to it. If you break it, you die. It's a very easy calculus.
Yeah.
And I think they lean on it in this society because just the actual legal system, which is go before a king and ask if he can help you, isn't that sophisticated.
Yeah.
And not always terribly reliable, especially if the king is somebody like Joffrey.
Like Joffrey, yeah.
So you've got to rely on these oaths. And that's why they're taken so seriously, because they're a really important unit of a functional medieval society in the absence of things that we take for granted.
Yes.
Yes, right? I thought it was great. That is my legal summation. And yeah, Christy points out Sam's best friend, Run, what's left of the Night's Watch. I think he's good. Very good point. Dolores Ed is still there. But yeah, well, Sam doesn't really do much in this chapter. He tries to stop Jon. He fails, and he gets the guys, and he goes. By the way, in the books, Sam, or on the show rather, I don't know if you remember, Sam actually rides out with them. In the books, he doesn't, because he's a fat, clunky man, and it doesn't make a lot of sense for him to like be riding hard after Jon. In the books, he just goes and tells them. He tattles. And then they go and get him. Anyway, what's next? Okay, so yeah, he talks to Lord Commander Mormont.
Yep.
Who just basically lays out what we've already said. That when the dead men come walking into the night, do you think it matters? Jon Snow's like, oh, great. And then he tells them, we're going beyond the wall. We're going to find out what happened to Benjen Stark. We're going to go out there. We're going to discover what needs discovering, and you're going to come with me. How is that as an ending to Jon Snow's journey in this book? Because this is the last chapter we get from this book.
I feel like it's kind of fitting for his overall arc of searching. He's searching for himself, and he ends his story here literally on a search. What is the answer to the questions that we have? And his question is, unbeknownst to him, not unbeknownst to him, but who am I? And the answer is even more cataclysmic than he could even think. But yeah, and then he's literally ending on a search, and it's kind of family related too, because Uncle Benjen. So he's going out in search of himself, his family, these answers. So I kind of thought it was a fitting ending to both his story, and it's like we talked last week, that hook. We're finishing the last 15 minutes of the movie and setting up the sequel. This is a little bit of window dressing where he's going to go. It's
definitely good setup. Like, if you want to know what's beyond the wall, tune in for the next book. Like, we're going to go out there and find out. And we do. We do all that stuff. I mean, about family, I think that Lord Commander Mormont is also, he's not literal family, but they draw the, substitute father-son connection pretty strong in this book. Like, he gives Jon Longclaw, his Valyrian steel sword.
Right, yeah.
He even carves the pommel into a direwolf for him. That sword was meant for his actual son, Jorah. Who skedaddled when he sold slaves. So,
and I remembered that part from when, in this most recent season, when the big Ice Island episode with the where Longclaw comes back and Jorah's there, and
Jon offers it to him.
Yeah, so
he's
that's
like,
what I thought of when this happened here.
Yeah, Jorah is his son. So really, I mean, by giving Jon the sword meant for his actual son, I mean, how much more symbolic do you need it to be? Yep. Like, it's a surrogate father-son kind of thing. I mean, Jon, like a lot of kind of epic heroes who are kind of windless, collects sort of father figures. I mean, like Ned, obviously a father figure.
Yep.
Lord Commander Mormont, obviously a father figure. Later, Mance Rayder will kind of spill in. Stannis is a bit of that, too. We'll get all to that later. So he picks them up like crazy. And this is definitely one. So we're done with Jon's story, the whole thing. So from start to finish, in this book, what do you think of it? Is it like is Jon's story the reason to read a Game of Thrones?
I came into the show thinking that Jon was the reason to watch. That Jon was going to be Jon's story. Yeah. I don't know, maybe because I was equating it to, again, this was before we knew how it was going to zig and it was going to zag. Right. But like, it was kind of like that Luke Skywalker story where here's the young chap who's going to go and become a man, and this is his journey through his ascension to the highest whatever. And it didn't end up being the case. And then I was so maybe I wasn't looking at that much in this book, but I felt like he was kind of a background character to the bigger things. I felt that characters like, even Arya had bigger moments in the book. Robb was the same way, where he's kind of a background character. He's in and he's out. Catelyn's chapters really stood out to me in ways that Jon's didn't.
Daenerys I think, were strong in this one.
Daenerys feels more like a main character.
She got married. She became like a queen of the barbarian people, and then her husband died, and then she's going to have dragons. It feels like she has a pretty big arc in this one.
Yeah, and even Sansa stuck out a little bit to me, too.
I'm surprised you haven't mentioned Ned.
Well, beyond the obvious of Ned, I mean, like, I think that almost goes without saying, because like he was propped up to be the main character of the story in the show. Even though 2010, the Sean Bean effect was very much alive. Like at that point, it was very much a joke. Like, how many times does Sean Bean have to be in a movie and it's guaranteed that he's gonna die? So that's actually. I was a little surprised in the show why everybody was like, oh my God, he's dead. They killed Ned Stark. I was like, of course, he's played by Sean Bean. What do you expect? He doesn't survive anything that he's in. So, yeah, so with Ned, I got main character vibes off of him too, and then Daenerys. So Jon felt very much like a background character. Not that you shouldn't be invested in the story, because I did get.
I mean, he's
the arcs
obviously.
Here. Yeah, it wasn't.
Tyrion too. That had some good stuff.
Yeah, but Jon was very much into the background, back burner.
I felt that way too. I think this is probably, maybe it might be Jon's weakest leg, because like there's not a ton happens to him here.
No.
He gets to the wall. It sucks for a while. It gets a little better. He tries to leave, but then he doesn't.
Then he comes back.
It's like, yeah, I mean, compared to, again, like someone like Daenerys or Ned, who, Ned ends up dying, which is pretty big. Daenerys, gives birth to dragons and loses her husband. It's pretty low key. But I mean, Jon's a slow burner. He'll become more prominent in the later books. And Karen, I wish I could read this entire comment, Karen, but Facebook isn't letting me. Mormon also says, all I know is the blood of the first men flows in the veins of the Starks. And then you say more, and Facebook cuts it off. But he does say that. And it's its whole idea of, the Starks being particularly important metaphysically to the story, to the battle against the White Walkers, and Mormont wanting a Stark descendant, which Jon is, just not from the Stark he thinks, on the journey north, because he's, just historically and sort of mystically important.
It's like some weird Matrix-y stuff, like second Matrix, old guy in the in the room of TVs being like, yes, this is all metaphysically.
That stuff's always in the background here.
Yeah.
Like, I had an example here, remember the moment, it was kind of cute, when Jon's trying to find him, he's hiding with his horse in a thicket, I don't know, and Ghost barks, and Jon's like, traitor, which is cute. There's a whole theory about the Stark relationships with their direwolves and how they're kind of mental extensions of them. And I'm like, you know what, Jon? You wanted to be found deep down, and Ghost just kind of gave voice to that.
There you go.
That's this really dorky head tinfoil thing. Any other thoughts, Josh, on the final Jon chapter in Game of Thrones?
No.
Okay, really quick, really fast. I just want to impart some vocabulary wisdom to everybody out there.
Ooh, yes.
Okay.
The vocab. Let's do it.
Moonlight silver to the hills. Not really vocab, but silver as a verb. Do it more often. It's nice. And also, Jon mentions he doesn't want his horse to get injured or blown. I didn't know this. A blown horse is one that's ridden to its limit, because apparently horses will die if it's run forever and then die. I didn't know that.
I needed to double back on that one too. I was like, excuse me, John, what? So
I read the blown horse.
I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like a blown
dirty.
Tire. So
It's,
you're blowing out a tire. Yeah.
I wonder if that's not where it's from. It just tire literally blows out. Never mind.
Yeah. But.
So that's interesting. And that's about it for Jon IX. I think next is next the last chapter? No, I think we have a Catelyn, and then we have Daenerys is the last chapter of this book.
Oh.
But yeah, we're pretty much done, Josh. We have 2 chapters to go.
Then it's the new book.
Then it's a Clash of Kings.
Oh, yes.
Although I think we'll do one episode where we just look back on the whole thing and do a little post-mortem.
Say goodbye to Game of Thrones.
Thanks for joining us. Oh, Laura thinks that Stillfield Jon is descended from the Night King. Oh, very interesting. And Julie Davies, thanks, guys, and thanks for a great show once again.
Yeah.
Thanks, you didn't say hi to everybody, though.
I didn't, and I was thinking about that the whole show. I was waiting. Every single time you asked me a question, I was going to say, this is the time I'm going to say hi. And then I'd fly into a point. So, hi, everybody. Bye, everybody.
Okay. And Laura says that blown horse is a racehorse term and a Song of Ice and Fire term, apparently. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be back next week with more Game of Thrones news, more Song of Ice and Fire tidbits, more Song of Dan and Josh, more Beyond the Wall fun. Thanks for watching, and see you next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central on our Facebook page. Adios.